you guys a little factoring review. Um, and so I wanted to start with multiplication because I want to explain to you how multiplication works. So we start with the box, and here we go. Here's your box. When you multiply, so we have our 3x minus 4 and 5x plus 3. Okay, and so we end up with 15x squared minus 20x. We have 9x here, and we have negative 12. And when you do this all out, it's going to be 15x squared. We always like to combine our like terms, our 9x and our negative 20. Okay, so we end up with minus 11x minus 12. And most of you really great with the multiplication. So what you do need to see is in your multiplication, things that you notice. Like I ask you, well, where did this negative 11 come from in my problem? Well, if I add the 9x and the negative 20, I get the negative 11. So I know that these two numbers here, this guy here and this guy here, I know that they add to be negative 11. Something else that you might notice is that 15 and negative 12 is negative 180. Maybe you don't know that, but it is. And 9 and negative 20 is also negative 180. So that happens every single time. These two numbers always multiply to the same thing as those two numbers. So what you're looking for when you are factoring is you are actually looking for the terms that are actually go on the outside. So what you're looking for is this here and that there. Okay, and so what you don't have, which would be nice, and when we did the notes on this, okay, is you don't have these terms right here to figure out what goes on the outside. But you know something about those terms. What you know about those two terms right there, let's change to a pink, I hate writing with red. You know that those two terms, that when you combine them, okay, they add to be this negative 11. And you also know that they multiply to be negative 180, okay? So you go through, if you remember, you go to y equals in the calculator, if you can't think of the two numbers, and now this one's kind of hard, and you put in the calculator under y equals, you put negative 180 divided by x, okay, and then you go to second graph and it takes you to a table, and what you look for is you look for the two numbers in that table that add to be negative 11, and when you do that you end up with a you see that it's a negative 20x, and this had to be positive 9x because those are the only two numbers. It does not matter where you put those numbers. So I look here, my greatest common factor, the number for 15 and 9 is going to be 3x, and negative 20 and negative 12 is negative 4. Right here, 3 times 5 is 15. I know I have an x here because x times x is x squared. And then 3 times 3 is 9. So the factored form is going to be 3x minus 4 times 5x plus 3. And you're done factoring. So we'll try a couple more towards the bottom of this page. Hopefully I didn't go too fast. Okay. So we'll do a couple here. Let's do, okay. Now, each time, I'm gonna erase all this, you need to find your greatest common factor first. So, sorry, this is just some leftovers from some other work. Don't look. Okay. So for this, we do the same thing for this problem right here. And we did this in our notes. These are already done somewhere in the classroom. So what do I know? What do I know that goes in this box? I know that this is 7x squared, and this is 8. Okay, what we're looking for are the two numbers here so we can figure out what goes on the outside. So what do I know about those two numbers? Little mystery. I know that when I put them together, they had to add to be 30, and they have to multiply to be 56. Okay, so you go to y equals in your calculator, you do 56 divided by x. Okay, if you don't have a calculator on you, you don't have to worry. You can actually go through and think about all the factors of 56. I know 7 and 8, that would actually give me 15, so that's not close to, that's not as close as I'd like to be to 30. So think about other numbers. So I think, well, okay, what else goes into 56? 2 and 28. And 2 plus 28 is 30. So those are our numbers. So we have a 2x and a 28x. Okay, greatest common factor here is going to be between 7 and 28. Well, what had to be on the outside? A 7 and an x, because they both have x. Okay, here, the 2x and the 8, there had to be a 2. Okay, and 7x times 1x is 7x squared, and 7x times 4, and so my factored form is going to be 7x plus 2 times x plus 4, and you are all done. Okay. When you're factoring completely, you should always find the greatest common factor first. We're going to kind of skip over those because when we get to solving, it doesn't really matter with solving. So let's try, okay, let's try number 5 down here. Okay, so we do the same thing. I do my box, all right, all my sparkles and everything. I have 4x squared and negative 5. I am looking for two numbers. They have to add to be my 19, and they have to multiply to be negative 20. Okay, and when you have numbers that close, it's usually there's a 1 involved. So I think, okay, so it could be, well, negative 20 times positive 1, that would give me negative 19. But positive 20 times negative 1 gives me positive 19. So I put my 20x here, my negative 1x here. I go across the top. What is the greatest common factor of 4x squared and 20? Well, that's going to be a 4 and an x. My greatest common factor here, now anytime you have a negative, you're going to factor out a negative, so I'm going to factor out a negative 1. Okay? So that's the only time you find the greatest common factor is of this side. So then we look up here. So 4 times what would give me 4? Well, that's going to be 1 and an x. Okay, 4 times 5 gives me 20. And just to check, is negative 1 times 5 negative 5? Yep. So I did it right. So it's going to be 4x minus 1 times 1x plus 5. And that is how you